My name is Ian Lawson. I'll be speaking to you guys on why life is best, why life is in keeping with the biblical worldview, and I'll be covering a couple of things. So, I'll be covering what kind of things are we, right? Because what we are as human beings defines what it means to be human and what it means and what you do with something, right? The value of an object defines how you treat it. And the value of a person, or not person, defines how you treat it, right? So if people are intrinsically valuable, then we treat them in a certain way. If they're not, then we treat them in a certain way. We'll be also covering the pro-life syllogism, which we'll learn more about in a little bit. We'll learn what's at stake, right? What is the cost, whether we're right or whether we're wrong. We'll look at a little bit of statistics. We'll look at what you can do, how you can get involved. And then we'll check out the thing that makes all this matter, the beauty of the gospel in redeeming not great situations. So let's get started. So what kind of things are we? Does anyone want to pull out their Bible and read loud and proud? You look adventurous back there. All right, so we're going to read Genesis 1:26 and 27, right in the beginning of the Bible, when God kind of defines what he made humans to be. Got any takers? I see some page flipping. David?
Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let them rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the air, over the livestock, over all the earth, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female he created them.
All right, so right there we hear image a lot. What does it mean to be created in the image of the Most High God, who's omnipotent, omnipresent, and just ridiculously powerful, who spoke and the universe came into existence? I don't know, but I'd say that there's something special about that is unique and different from the animals. He rules over the animals. He's not among the animals. Can we get someone to read Psalm 139, verses 13 and 15? We've got a volunteer.
What?
Verses 13 and 15.
Okay. For you created my innermost being, you knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearful and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in a secret place, when I was woven together in your depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body.
So that's interesting. It says, God, that your eyes saw my unformed body, and it says, you knit me together in my mother's womb. So an image bearer is knit. They're made, but God sees them when they're yet unformed. That's interesting. Let's keep that in mind. All right. So I'm going to quote one of my favorite pro-life apologists, Scott Klusendorf, and he says, "What makes humans valuable in the first place? This is an inherently religious question with no neutral ground. Either you believe that each and every human being has an equal right to life, or you don't. The pro-life view is that humans are intrinsically valuable in virtue of the things that they are." So just like we saw in the previous two Bible passages, people's value comes from what they are, not what they do, not what they can contribute to society, not because they're perfect, because they aren't, but because of what they are. They're intrinsically human, and God made them that way. All right, so now we get to the syllogism. The syllogism, or a syllogism, is 2 points and a conclusion. And if either of the 2 points are incorrect, then the conclusion is incorrect. But if either of the 2 points are true, or both of the 2 points are true, then the conclusion must also be true. So the pro-life syllogism is this: it is always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being. Therefore, abortion is wrong. So we have two interesting things. Notice intentionally kill and innocent. All those things must be in play. Otherwise, we're looking at a different case that isn't abortion. right? If it's not the intentional killing of an innocent human being, well, we've got a different situation. But abortion is the intentional killing of an innocent human being. And we'll look at that as we go along here. So, what's at stake? If I'm wrong, then, frankly, I'm wasting your time, I'm wasting resources, and pro-life pregnancy centers all across the country, people, good people, are spending their time doing something worthless. And, to boot, I'm preventing women from accessing a legitimate personal privilege. But if I'm right, then the greatest atrocity in all of human history is happening right now in your backyard, down the street, and all over the world today. Without question. That's something that merits a little bit of an investigation. So, to give you an idea of what's going down, we're going to talk about some statistics. I had some nice graphics up here, but as we know, there were some issues. So, whenever you go with statistics, whoever plays with the numbers can tell a narrative, right? So I always like to get statistics from the people that disagree with me. That, if I use Planned Parenthood's accepted statistics, then nobody's going to argue with you. So I like to use Guttmacher Institute statistics. So they say during 2010 through 2014, an estimated 56 million induced abortions occurred each year worldwide. This number represents an increase from 50 million annually during the period from 1990 to 1994, mainly because of population growth. That's staggering. Now again, if it's a non-human, non-entity, and as one pro-choice apologist said, like vacuuming out your house, then I should not be concerned. I shouldn't be wasting your time, and I shouldn't be wasting your resources. But if it is a human being, an innocent human being, then we have a problem. Again, we've got a nice graphic from Guttmacher Institute of breakdown of why people choose abortion, the statistics. A very tiny percentage is for such as victims of rape. About 7% is, well, the baby, we think it's going to be disabled. And the remainder of the given reasons state from not ready for a child, done having children, don't want to be a single mother, and similar cases.
Does it say where they're occurring?
In the United States. That's
56 million in the United States?
Oh, no. For worldwide is 56 million.
Yeah, but where the breakdown?
So breakdown is about 1 million a year in the United States. The majority of the other abortions would be in China. I believe 2014 was 926,000 abortions every year in the United States. That was a peak year, well, a relative peak year in the last 5-ish years. All right. Any thoughts or questions?
Big number.
It is a big number. And again, it merits investigation because if you're right, that's bad. All right, so another thing that's kind of concerning. In a survey conducted by CareNet, so again, these are our friends, so, might get some flack for using their statistics. Of 1,038 women who have had abortions, 70% claimed a Christian religious preference, and 43% reported attending church at least monthly at the time of an abortion. But only 7% of the women discussed their abortion decision with anyone at church. 76% said the church had no influence on their decision to terminate the pregnancy. Now, if abortion is what I'm purporting it to be, which is the killing of an innocent human being, and the church is just standing idly by, what are we doing? What are we teaching people? Are we teaching them that something for convenience is worthwhile? I think we need to really look at that. All right, so now let's go through the syllogism step by step and think about things. So the first point, the first statement, it is always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Do I have a volunteer for Genesis 9:5-6? Oh yeah, people up front. Oh, hand raised. Go for it, buddy.
The Lord set a time and said, "Tomorrow the Lord will do this in the land, and the next day the Lord will do it." All the livestock of the Egyptians died, but not one animal belonging to the Israelites died.
Is that Genesis 9, 5 through 6?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then that is an incorrect reference. All right, well I'll read what I had. For your lifeblood I will surely require a reckoning. Of every beast I will require it, and of man. Of every man's brother I will require the life of a man. Whoever sheds the blood of a man, by man his blood shall be shed. For God made man in his own image. All right, let's see if this is the right reference then. Psalm 106, 35, 37, 38. It's always a fun game.
106 what?
106, 35 through 38. Go for it.
But they mingled with the nations and adopted their customs. They worshipped their idols, which became a snare to them. They sacrificed their sons and their daughters to demons. They shed innocent blood, the blood of their sons and daughters, whom they sacrificed to the idols of Canaan, and the land was desecrated by their blood.
All right, so in summary, we have basically a reiteration that yes, it is always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. Christians, non-Christians, agnostics, atheists, most people are going to say, yeah, it is wrong to intentionally kill an innocent human being. It's pretty much universal, yes.
Now, you qualify that with innocent. Is there a definition of innocent?
Well, we could pick a definition of innocent. Like a child is innocent in that they haven't done anything, right? So that qualification of innocent is there, so the people are not like, but wait, it's intentionally wrong to kill a human being? What about self-defense? What about war? What about this and that? So an innocent human being is some sort of, like, for instance, a non-combatant. It's an innocent human being, someone who's on the sidelines. Now, are they truly innocent before God? No. People are born with a sin nature. However, it is an innocent human being from that perspective. They're a non-combatant. Any other great questions? All right. So, let's move on to the second point, because most people don't argue that it's wrong to kill people. And that's good, right? We should all be happy that people don't argue that it's okay to just, murder people. All right, so the point that really gets people riled up is abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being, right? So we know it's intentional. We know whatever it is innocent. I mean, we can anthropomorphize anything, but is it a human being? That's where all the controversy lies. So, I present to you an opinion or a statement that's based on background. There is no relevant difference between the unborn child you once were and the adult you are now, or middle-aged, child or whatever, growing up, that you are now, that justifies killing you at an earlier stage. All right, so there's this fun acronym called SLED. And SLED is size, level of development, environment, or degree of dependency. And none of those things affect how much you are valued. They don't affect whether you are a human being or not a human being. All of those four things break down and are something that is different from you now to an embryo or a fetus or baby. By the way, fetus just means baby in Latin. That means, it's okay to kill you then or now, right? Because logic states that if it applies then, it's going to apply straight through. So let's look at size. If size determines your value, a lot of people say, well, but the fetus is small. It's only 12 days old. It's only 23 weeks old, right? Because the cutoff's at 24 weeks in a lot of places. It's small, therefore it's not valuable. Well, that's a very dangerous proposition to make, right? Because if size determines value, and by size I'm going to say either volume or mass, to be precise.
Roger's a rich man.
All right. So volume or mass. then that's a very dangerous position, because a lot of you people in the room here from the high school group aren't as massive or voluminous as some other specimens of humanity. So does that mean your value is less? Oh, we got a problem here. That's not cool. Does that mean, the bigger the dude, the more valuable? No. Does that mean men are more valuable than women on average because they tend to be larger? No, that's absurd. And in the same fashion, it is also absurd to say, well, because it's small, it is insignificant, and therefore it is not valuable. Any questions on that? All right, you know what? You're pretty valuable too. All right. So level of development. Another thing that people will go is like, oh, but it's not developed. It's again, it's small. It's growing. It's not a full-fledged human being yet, right? When is the cutoff for humanity, right? It's not developed. But again, if level of development defines your humanity, then y'all high schoolers are screwed, because you're not fully developed humanity. If you draw lines like that, you get into some pretty sketchy, dangerous positions where you determine value based on level of development. Is a 2-year-old less valuable than your high schoolers? A lot of silence here. Some people would like to get rid of their siblings, but no, they aren't less valuable than anyone in this room. All right, so some people go and move on to say, well, it's the environment that defines value. Because the fetus, the baby, the embryo, whatever, is in the womb, it's not valuable. It's kind of like some sort of castle doctrine, but with your body or something. Like, right? It's in my house, so therefore I have control over it, and I dictate its right to exist. And that sounds really cool, and people are like, oh yeah, viva la revolution, don't tread on me, castle doctrine, my body, my choice, environment. But that has problems. If environment determines your value, then just me moving back and forth absurdly across the room as I speak might change my value. Now that sounds absurd to draw such a logical conclusion. But again, edge cases define how logic works, right? Because when you want to know whether a situation is absurd and whether it's a good idea to proceed with something, you always pull up an edge case. And that is an edge case. Is your value determined by where you are? No, of course not. Then why is it determined by where you are, whether you're in the womb or outside of the womb? Degree of dependency. This is a really good favorite one of the my body, my choice people. It's similar to environment, it's similar to level of development. All these are sort of similar. It's dependent. It's got an umbilical cord. It will probably croak if it's not supported by the mother, just to be straight up. I'm supplying it with everything. Therefore, you know what? I have the right to choose and to end or sustain it if I so wish. And that sounds good too. But again, let's go to an edge case. Are you independent from society? No. We're not hunter-gatherers, and even they're dependent on society. There is always specialization, there is always dependence, and really, do you want to live in a society where someone can just be like, oh, well, you're dependent on me, I don't care whether you live or die for my convenience. I don't want to live in that kind of place. And I don't believe that's right, and I don't believe that's what the Bible supports. So degree of dependency is in an absurd, really, kind of defense of being able to kill an innocent human being. So again, I will purport that there is no relevant difference between the embryo, the child, fetus that you once were, and the high schooler, middle schooler, or adult you are today. Abortion kills an innocent human being. So, again, if we're seeking truth, and we're looking at the syllogism, and we agree that the past two statements are correct, that to kill an intentionally kill an innocent human being is wrong, and an abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being, then we must conclude that abortion is wrong. That's just what you got to do, because if we're following truth, we're following logic, you got to go where it goes. All right, does anyone want to read Exodus 21, 22 through 25? And let's hope that this is the right reference. Swing and a miss. Exodus 21, 22 through 25. I believe you wanted to read last time, right? All right, go for it.
If men who are fighting hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely, but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whether the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise.
All right. So that's kind of interesting. So it doesn't like, oh, you can be fined because they wanted to have a child and, because the family wanted to have the child and it's valuable and, that's kind of cruddy that you killed or damaged their child and you should help support the crippled child because you crippled it. No, it holds the adult males who's fighting, it holds his body to be equal to the fetus's body, the baby's body. Again, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, and foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise. That's interesting. In Exodus here, we're purporting that the unborn is bodily equivalent in value before God to a full adult who is a functional member of society and contributes all sorts of things. Now, given he was fighting, but we're purporting that that is true. That should say a lot. And that should make us step back and go, wait a minute. If that's the case then, what does God say now? Again, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, bruise for bruise. 56 million life for life yearly? That's pretty rough. All right, so one of my favorite abolitionists, probably my favorite abolitionist for the prior great atrocity, the slave trade, would be William Wilberforce. And he had a famous quote. He says, "You may choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you did not know." And so the purported context of that is he had a dinner party for the House of Commons. He has all his other fellow representatives come aboard the ship that I don't remember if he rented or he owned or whatever. Regardless. So he pulls the ship, and they have music and they're drinking and dancing, and it's a grand old time. And they pull into the harbor past a slave ship. Now this slave ship had just, had a delivery, and it was fresh in. And, the chains are being dried over the sides. And the lords and ladies in the House of Commons were absolutely horrified. And what they remembered was the stench. Remember, there's no living people on it right now. They had all either been sold or buried or thrown out to sea. They remember the stench, and that should tell you something. That it smelled bad enough at the turn of the 17th century that people then remembered how bad it was. And they're just pulling by on a ship. You remember what you experience, what you see, what you smell. You may choose to look the other way, but you can never again say that you did not know. And through that, he got the ball rolling for worldwide abolition of the slave trade, and among other events that he partook in. So, I challenge you to go home, look up AVP, or abortion victim photography. I used to be against this, but then I went and toured Auschwitz and Auschwitz-Birkenau. And I was like, well, why is it okay to display images of what happened then? Why do I think it's okay to have had the U.S. military march the German people of the city of Auschwitz through Auschwitz to see what was going on? Why is that okay? Again, life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. If it's equal, and what's going on is equal, then why is it okay that we can make mandatory education on the Holocaust, but can't display images of what's going on? Because again, what you see, what you smell, what you experience changes your mind. It sticks with you. You can ignore things that I say, But it's very difficult to ignore things that you see. So I encourage, I challenge, I dare you to go home and watch a video of an abortion. Remember, you live in Osweesum. That's all I'm going to say. All right. What can you do? So this is terrible, right? Bad stuff's going on. But unfortunately, there's no Hitler to kill. There's no Himmler to shoot. There's nothing like that. There's no individual that you say, you are responsible for the deaths of 56 million people. There simply isn't. The war is in the hearts and the minds of people and individuals right around you, politicians, doctors, just people. So what you can do? You can get involved personally. You can volunteer. You can befriend. Be Christ. That's the really important thing. Change hearts, save lives. You change hearts to save lives. As you save lives, you change hearts. It goes back and forth and around. Right? That's the motto of Protect Life, Michigan. Change hearts, save lives. I challenge you to do something costly, something that's difficult, right? You know, people think like, oh, you know, adoption is pretty costly. Yeah, that is pretty costly. But there's all kinds of other things you can do. Be a witness. Speak out. Get some sort of apologetics training. Know why you know what you know. Be able to speak the truth in love, right? And make it clear why you do what you do, right? Because I've got lots of atheist and agnostic friends who are very pro-life. I don't know why. They borrow their, morality from all sorts of places. But regardless, they're very pro-life. But make sure people know that you're pro-life because Christ died for you and Christ died for the unborn. The beauty of the gospel is that even in all this brokenness, even in all this death, Christ died for you. Christ died for the woman who's had an abortion. Christ died for the abortion doctor. Christ died for everyone in every little chain involved. Can we get someone to read Romans 3:23? Loud and enthusiastically. So one thing that is unique, well, I shouldn't say it's unique, but it is especially prevalent in individuals who've had an abortion, is they know they've fallen short of something. They don't know what they've fallen short of, but they know they've done something. They've done something wrong. They know it's bad. If they believe in hell, they know they're going there. But they don't know the next thing. They know that the wages of sin is death, but they don't know that the gift of God is eternal life. They think they've gone too far, and without Christ, definitely they have gone too far. We've all gone too far. But they don't know that it's by grace they are saved through faith, and the gift of God is eternal life through Jesus Christ, our Lord, that no one can boast. All right, let's read Romans 10:8 through 9.
But what does it say? The word is near you. It is in your mouth and in your hearts. That is the word of faith we are proclaiming. That if you confess with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it is with your heart that you believe and are justified, and it is with your mouth that you confess and are saved.
All right. So that's interesting. It says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. You will be saved. Now, Jesus raises the standard on what murder and evil is, to the point where it says, if you hate your brother, you've murdered him. Right? So we're all in the same boat as anyone who's committed an abortion or anyone who's helped along the chain of events that led to the death of an innocent human being. We've all done that. But God has made a way. Right? We're screwed. We're going to hell, except Christ, but Christ. That's the difference. That's what you have to share with people. Right? It's fine to say abortion's wrong, abortion's murder, and that's 100% right. But what does it matter if we're all going to hell anyway? Live it up. I don't even care. Share of Christ. And that's the end of my presentation. If you got questions, I'd love to tell stories. So, yeah.
Yeah, two things. One, China has most arbortions. Probably goes back to their one child per family thing. And the Wall Street Journal article not too long ago talked about how that's really messing up their economy because they're not reproducing enough kids to replace their population.
Yeah.
And so what happens, you have and it's somewhat true in our country as well. There's not enough young people to support their aging population. But the other thing, Ian, is the sanctity of life is so valuable, so important. I think with the Old Testament, God's killing everybody. Wipes out entire villages, kills this person, kills that person for whatever reason. How is that valuing life?
So, any Christian who really thinks about things is going to have difficulty with things in the Old Testament. Of course, you're going to have difficulty with things in the Old Testament. You're going to be like, well, why, Lord? Why? Why kill everyone in the city of Ai or the city of Jericho? That doesn't make any sense. We're like, well, I'm a pretty generous person. I feel like we could get along with them and maybe capture the city and, I don't know, be friends, but like not murder them, right? So any self-respecting Christian who really reads the Old Testament is going to have an issue with that. But God knows the full story. He doesn't want anyone to perish. And I suspect that there's more going on than we know. Right? We know that Balaam is there. We know that other individuals are there. And God doesn't want people to perish. But you know what? Sin is sin. People are bad. And some people have to die. I don't know. I would struggle with that. I struggle with that as well. But someday we get to talk to God, and we get to know the rest of the story. Any other hard questions or thoughts?
One response I have back here is that things that happened in the Old Testament like that, Roger, the extermination of whole towns and cities and even whole people groups, were exceptional cases. They were isolated. Whatever you could say about those things and the rightness and wrongness of those things and whether God was justified or not justified, they were very isolated. Now, so abortion is an extended practice. It's a practice that is made legal for all time, every day, every year, right? In perpetuity, unless it ever becomes banned again. And in all these other nations like China and so many nations now can do it every single day without respect, without regard to whether or not those people deserve death and whether they deserve judgment, because judgment was the premise of the exterminations, judgment of God, and so on. So this daily, year-round practice now is condoned, and the premise is convenience, which I think is
Most
in
unfortunate.
a whole different category.
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing, that the part where it's the killing of an innocent people. Because God, most of the time, let the people groups know you're not doing the will of God, and the punishment for sin is death. Turn around, and they didn't. And so they knew about the punishment that was coming, and they didn't do anything about it. And so they were sinful, and they were guilty of sin, and they had to pay the price for it. And we would have to do that too if we didn't have to do that.
In fact, Abraham wasn't allowed to enter the promised land for
Yeah.
400 years, and God
God said, because the measure of their sin hasn't reached its fullness. And so there was a very clear idea of there is bad happening, but there is a chance for them to turn it around. But then there's a point where it's full and it's done. But even as they were marching to Canaan, there were countries they were passing where God said, don't touch these people. So God had a very specific beef with very specific people, and he gave them a significant amount of time. And something I think you often hear from people that argue about the injustice of God, at the same time something they sense and they say is, how can you say God is just? Look at all the evil that's happening. Look at this evil. And we see that, and so then you have to ask, here in the Old Testament you have these countries where for generations now they have been taking their kids and burning them in fire. What does justice look like when you have that? And people don't know, we don't know how to answer that question. What does real justice look like? But I think we're seeing glimpses into that. There's a time to repent, and there's a time where God says it's enough. We draw a line here.
All right. Story time? Anything? Interested in...
How do you deal with very upset people when you're talking to
Very
them?
kind, very kindly, very carefully, right? Some people, you can't do anything, right? You're just standing there and they're like, bleep and bleep, flip you off and keep walking. But some people, in doing that, they show a little bit of their heart, right? I've done stuff with Let Them Live in Ireland on a little break, and I distinctly remember somebody walking by and screaming expletives and being like, I didn't kill my baby, and just keep marching. That's interesting. Why would they say that? Unless something was pricking their heart. And now obviously I wish I could have talked to that woman, but she was very intent on not remaining in the same vicinity as me for as short a period of time as possible. But that shows something. That shows where she's coming from, and it kind of gives you a little bit of compassion for her, because she's dealing with something that really only people who are sitting in prison for murder deal with. That's pretty crappy. And I really hope she can meet Jesus. That's about it. Yes?
I think just like the people of Canaan were beyond, like, they were so hardened that they were beyond repenting. I think that's kind of what some people are like today. They get so hardened they won't listen to your message. I mean, even Balaam, the prophet, to the Canaanites, was so hardened, like all he cared about was money. He didn't care about God's message at all. And it's the same way with so many people in our culture. A lot of them believe there's a God. They don't like hearing what he says about right and wrong.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, you can look, but you can never again say that you did not know. You're without excuse. Sure, yeah.
How do you answer one of the biggest problems that I've encountered with people who think abortion is fine? That there's no option for when you're in poverty or in bad life situations where you can't afford having a child, you don't have the people to take care of the child, and people are like, there should be a better care system or a better net for people to be caught with because the most people that I've talked to mostly think all they hear is, don't abort your child. We won't help you keep it alive. We can help you take care of it. We just don't want you to kill it.
So yeah, a lot of people will do that. And I've always been amused, especially when I'm doing activism with like families who have their adopted children, doing activism with them, and somebody pulls it up and they're like, hey, but my child's right here. I've already got 3. What do you want me to do? It was also amusing because there's a couple that I know that I've had the pleasure of doing activism with, and they've been looking for people to adopt babies from. And wouldn't you know, it's really hard to get people to let you adopt their child. Yeah, so a couple of things. Absolutely, there should be a safety net, and that safety net should be you and me, the church, and everybody working together to make sure that people are without excuse. Because right now they have a pretty legitimate excuse. Yeah, nobody's going to help me. Change that. But let's step back. So people will say, well, the baby is going to be born into poverty, and from compassion for the child, we should end its life so that it doesn't have to grow up in a unfortunate situation. So that's kind of interesting. But I would like to point out that 50-ish years ago, the argument would be that it's better that the poor people don't have children because poor people are undesirables, and we really shouldn't have more poor people. So if you notice, the change has been from eugenics to a compassion, or a pseudo-compassion, but it's still eugenics. It's the same thing.
Define eugenics real quick.
So eugenics is getting rid of undesirable traits from society. I'm not sure if that's the specific dictionary definition, but that's how the word is used. You're picking and choosing. Oh boy, we got to pull out a dictionary. I like it. All right, you're picking and choosing traits that you want or don't want. So it's something along the lines of what is the perfect race, and let's get rid of all the undesirable traits. Well, let's get rid of all the Down syndrome. Let's get rid of all this disease. Let's make sure spina bifida is gone. Short people too, because again, size determines value. So let's get the biggest babies we can possibly get. So that's eugenics, and same line of thought. When you're going, okay, well, we wouldn't want to have more poor people, so let's make sure that they have a way to kill all their children to help them. I would say falls in the same line. So there's that, and there's our responsibility as a church or as a people before God to make sure that people are without excuse to say, no one would help me. No, we would have helped you, but you said no.
So, like, if somebody, a poor person, says they won't want to live, like, in this society, and then they kill them, they would go to hell because they didn't have the time to accept Christ into their life, and that would be even more undesirable.
Can you rephrase? So let me see what you're trying to say. You're saying that is a poor person kills their baby or commits suicide? Can you frame the question?
Like, if a poor person is having a baby and then they do abortion, wouldn't the baby just go to hell? And then
So that's an interesting theology. So it is generally accepted, I'm going to say in the most general sense, that there's a sort of innocent period where the child is without knowledge, without any kind of accountability before God, and would just go to heaven. If that is true, then most of the population of heaven is going to be said innocents, because throughout history, the majority of history, most people just died because diseases, bad things happening. The world's been pretty cruddy for a long time, and with our current trend for abortion, again, most of the people in heaven are still going to be innocents because we're so prolific at it. But no, the baby's not going to hell, and another clarification is that the mother is not going to hell because of an abortion. No, they're going to hell because they're a sinner. Abortion is just like the little extra, maybe little sprinkles on the sin cake. The cake existed. We are all sinners from birth, and before God, we're sinners in the hands of an angry God. There's no way of getting around it, and the only way of redemption is through Christ. And people like to be like, oh, abortion's wrong. People that are really enthusiastic, and yes, absolutely. But so is everything you've done. Be compassionate. Remember that.
Your sled argument also fits into this.
That is true. Sled goes a lot of places.
Because if we accept that getting rid of poor babies is good for them, why not step it up to poor toddlers and poor young people?
Just poor people in general.
Just less misery.
Just make welfare into a
What you've said, size and development.
cutoff point. Yeah.
I think this whole discussion about like, oh, let's be sympathetic, let's like kill these babies because no one wants to take care of them, like it's just another symptom of our culture's rejection of personal responsibility. Like if you chose to have sex, like the point of sex is to have kids, like you could have not had sex, you know? You chose to have sex and this is the result. So it's your problem, really.
Well, I mean, it's not just personal responsibility, it's personal value and personal responsibility, right? So maybe I don't take personal responsibility. It's like, well, crud, but that thing, that child has personal value that merits me doing something whether or not it's my responsibility or not. I don't know. It's tough stuff.
I want to add something to the
Cool. Throw more stuff in.
thing because I've heard it as an argument for abortion to say, well, my baby will go to heaven anyway. So I think it's a
Okay.
dangerous thing.
Nuke the world. Y'all dead. So right? Why not? Why not kill every baby?
That's what I'm saying. It's dangerous to say, well, because but that's what the bill said.
Well,
Because
yeah, I
there's
saw.
people saying that abortion isn't bad. It's not for bad for the baby, and I think that's a dangerous place to go because then, you know.
I mean, you're in good.
You won't allow the child to grow to be the person because it's convenient for you to say, well, if it's gone now, it's going to have the best outcome of its life.
I mean, just like Stalin said, death solves all problems. No man, no problems. And it's 100% true. If everyone's dead, there's no problems. But is that really what you want to do? I'm going to go with a no. I'm assuming that is the conclusion of our class. I can tell stories, but yeah. All right, thoughts?
Thank you, Ian. Let's thank Ian.
Thanks, Ian.